Marcia, and Her Delightful Wicked Stepmother, by Saskia Z. Marcia Part 1. Dating. My stepmother never really disapproved of my dressing up as a girl, which I discovered in my early teens. She actually encouraged me and provided me with the prettiest of girls' clothes, at first supposedly accidentally, as in "there's a box of your cousin's stuff I put in your spare closet for safekeeping," strangely enough all brand new and all in my exact size. Later, once she accidentally caught me dressed, much more directly as she found it darling, as she regularly exclaimed in her Swedish taunting manner, in a slight foreign accent. She always reminded me of a brunette Zsa Zsa Gabor. She thought I should have the complete experience of being a pretty teenage lady, so in the end she made me have boyfriends and relentlessly set me up on dates with young men she or her friends knew. She was ruthless and she never took no for an answer. She would take hours grooming me for my dates. My now long hair would be in curlers. She would do my nails and makeup and she'd help me get into some extremely glamorous party dress she bought me for the occasion. Meanwhile her evilish but seductive voice would be ringing through my head instructing me how to behave and especially how a lucky girl like me should feel and think on my date. This would go on and on for ages until I seemed not to have a thought or a will of my own anymore. Mummy really knew what was good for me and by then I was feeling like a princess awaiting her wonderful prince. It all felt so right, and I loved Mummy for making me see her way. I was the perfect date, and would always try to please my boyfriend, as long as there was no sex. I was to be a young lady looking for romance and kisses, not a slut. I would however, be very willing and enthusiastical, when kissing and making out with my boyfriend. And the week after it roughly went the same way with a different dress, a new even more glamorous hairdo and a new boyfriend. She even set up a website for me, where I was supposedly frantically looking for suitable men, and where she was posting my sexiest pictures. This of course attracted a more adult kind of men, but Mummy knew that it was what a girl like me needed. Marcia Part 2. Mark. I had actually planned to run away today. It's not that I'm complaining, as I have been a very willing participant in the whole thing up to now. But often the weirdness of my home situation gets to me. It was the last day of school before the summer holiday and I saw the few friends I had left, planning all kinds of holiday activities, their camping trips and travels. I was totally losing contact with that life, and would probably lose the few oddball friends that I still had, if they even had an idea about what my home life was like. I was just getting very confused. I had written a note to stepmother to explain that I was going on a camping trip with my friends and that she shouldn't worry, although I had no idea where I was really going. It wasn't to be though, as when I stood in front of the door and was going to put the letter in the mailbox, Mommy opened the door for me and almost dragged me inside, and I was as usual, totally overpowered by her presence, so nothing came from my escape. Probably meant that Mark would be away for the holidays, in a very different way than I had planned. I knew I just wouldn't be able to resist the combination of Mommy's presence and the seductiveness of Marcia. So here I am, reluctantly sitting at my vanity in my girls' undies, stockings, heels and satin robe, having my stepmother doing my hair and makeup, and as we were supposedly celebrating the holidays, it was going to be an especially glamorous look today. Looking at the mirror, I already felt a change in my demeanor, as I saw Marcia coming alive once again, and I knew she would soon engulf my resistance and take over the wheel. I hadn't had a chance from the beginning. It just felt too good. Mark would soon just be a nagging voice in the background of my mind. Strange thing is that Marcia actually sort of disliked Mark for standing in her way, when it came to being as perfect a girl as she could be. Without the voice in her head, that kept her from embracing her girlhood completely. She could have so much more fun. So as soon as Mother's handiwork was done, and I was looking at the real Marcia me again, and I looked unbelievable, Mother had me looking like a young 50s movie star. I decided to tell her about Mark's ministrations to sabotage our plans for the future. Mommy was of course delighted that her Marcia had won the battle for now and was smiling from ear to ear at my confession. She told me she was so happy that Marcia was here again and that if I was really committed to being Marcia now, she could probably help me to get rid of Mark for the time being. "Look," she said, "if you're really going to be Marcia now, you will have to do something for Mommy, to prove that you are really serious about this. If you will do this for me, we'll have a little hypnosis session, like we had when you needed some help with your deportment lessons. And we'll make that nasty Mark go on holiday for a while. I can't promise or tell for how long, but for the time being he'll be off my little lady's case. Now, wouldn't you like that, my princess?" "Oh yes please Mommy," I heard myself say, "make Mark go away. I'll do anything you want me to, please." "Alright honey, then do this for Mommy. There is a lovely email on your computer from your admirer Mr. Johnson. It's virtually a love letter. You will answer it, confirming that Marcia is falling in love with him too. I could of course send it to him myself, but I want you to do it yourself, as a first action to put Mark off and to show me you are serious about making Marcia reality now. Apart from that he seems to be a very kind, and rather attractive gentleman. Just the sort of mature boyfriend I want for my lovely daughter. So here is what you are going to write to your beau. I've written it down for you." This is what was in Mommy's note. "Falling in love. My darling, I've become totally helpless to resist your love for me. Over the course of these past weeks my now so utterly girly emotions caused my confused heart and soul to grow delightfully out of control. And although it's still only a fantasy, I cannot help but love you ever so deeply. Your lovely way with words and the passion they transmit, make me go weak at the knees like a teenage girl receiving her first kiss. Being in love with a mature manly man, is the crown on my femininity, and the man returning these feelings with so much desire and passion makes my heart flutter. My romantic thoughts are now all dedicated to my darling, my fiancé. My love. Whilst writing this I cannot help touching myself through the silk of the skirt I'm wearing, stroking my nylon-clad legs and letting my hand wander to what's in my satin commie knickers. I'm already moist. I'm actually quivering when I imagine you near me, and I'm again yearning for your deep continuing kisses. You make me feel like I'm your delicate little princess, your beautiful trophy bride. Thank you for all that, my darling. I sincerely hope we can meet in person soon. With all my love and kisses. Your little Marcia. End of message. Now I know you still have reservations about dating a more mature gentleman, but once we got rid of Mark you will see it's mainly Mark holding you back, and you will realize a sophisticated lady like Marcia can't date schoolboys anymore, and you will see this is much more appropriate. Just look into the mirror. You are way too sophisticated and glamorous now. Those boys wouldn't know how to treat a classy lady like you. Now go and do as I said, and then we can do something about Mark. Looking in the mirror and seeing a very glamorous and grown-up young miss looking back at me almost convinced me she was right, so I obeyed and went to my computer. When I saw Mr. Johnson's message there was something that raised my concerns again, as it said that he had actually talked to Mother on the phone and that he was totally delighted she had approved of our budding love and us meeting for real. This was all going a bit fast for me. In the hope Mommy was right about Mark's disappearance fixing this, I did however post the response Mommy had given me. Now come with me to my room, darling, so we can have our little talk about nasty Mark. And then afterwards we can get you properly dressed, as Mommy bought you something special for the occasion. I meekly followed. Afterwards I could remember only vaguely what we talked about or what happened during the session, but I could clearly feel something had changed. I felt very relaxed and somewhat euphoric, and there was indeed no more nagging voice in the back of my head. I loved my Mommy so much. Meanwhile, Mommy was getting my new dress for me. I had already switched my suspender belt for a small waist corset with attached suspenders. Apparently the outfit Mommy had chosen for me tonight needed it, and I had swapped my bedroom mules for a gorgeous pair of rhinestone sandals with a 5-inch heel. I was really getting in the mood now, and when Mother came into the room with a large box with the logo of one of the top fashion shops in town, I was purring, and almost squealed when I opened it. There it was, the most glamorous and prettiest gown I had ever seen. It was a mermaid-style dark green taffeta evening gown. The sort of gown that brings tears to your eyes. It was in wonderfully impossibly restricted confection, and it would be hard to move around in, and it would make me feel as delicate and vulnerable as I desired now. Mommy added, "A young lady like you deserves to feel like a princess sometimes, and as you've been such a good girl, I'm to spoil and pamper my lovely new daughter a bit. Now come and have a glass of champagne with Mommy before we get you into your lovely new gown." When Mommy finally closed the zip on the dress, the reality of wearing such a confection totally overwhelmed me. I was almost totally helpless, and I initially even needed Mommy to support me just standing up, and especially, sitting down in it. Walking in it will probably always be a tour de force, even for the most elegant and experienced ladies. This, together with my body being constantly caressed by the delicious silk taffeta, the sound it made, and last but no means least, the absolutely delicious, sexy, totally classy young lady in the mirror, completely had me in rapture. Mommy handed me a small matching purse to go with it and said in her sweetest voice, she was almost purring, "Now honey, I have one other surprise for you, sweetheart. You didn't think we got Cinders all dressed up for nothing, did you? Now be careful how you walk, and follow Mommy, my darling Marcia." When I carefully entered the lounge, I was again stunned, as there was Mr. Johnson, the man I had just sent such an embarrassing message. Strangely, and I'm still not sure if it was Mark's disappearing, or something more Mommy had added to our session, it didn't feel embarrassing anymore. Mr. Johnson was a bit bigger and a little older, I think he's somewhere in his mid-60s, than I had thought before. He was very handsomely dressed in a classy suit and tie. I was actually getting rather excited, even being in the room with such a mature, strong, manly man. Me, now being this helpless, vulnerable, and delicate little thing, and this big man obviously desiring me. It made me feel even more girlish than I already did. At that moment I was completely the girl who wrote that letter, and as I felt myself walking over to this man, as elegantly and feminine as I could master, I was almost in a delicious trance. I felt like a virgin bride, about to meet her strong handsome groom at the altar, and when I finally stood in front of him, and looked up at his loving face, I felt a shiver going through my body. From that moment on everything happened almost automatically. My hands rested on his big strong chest, and I stood on tippy toes to kiss my man lovingly on the mouth, when I felt his strong hands holding my waist, again sending shivers through my delicate girly body. The gesture, and the feel of his strength and size, made me feel so deliciously small, vulnerable and in need of his manly protection and support. His hold on me was tight, but never rough. He held me like a strong man carefully holding something delicate. When Mommy gestured us to come over for drinks on the sofa, his arm was still tightly and possessively around my little silk-encased waist, and I loved every second of it. When we sat down, I sat down as close to him as possible, so to signal my total compliance with him handling me the way he did. I slightly rested my head on his strong shoulder, and furtively and deliciously girly, touched and caressed the manly hand that was still holding me tightly around the waist. I was in heaven. So, after a few glasses of champagne, Mother suggested we'd dance, and before she left us two lovebirds alone, she put on a smoochy CD and got us up so we would get to know each other better. We certainly did. feeling his strong arms all over my body now, caressing his neck, having sweet words of love and adoration whispered in my ears, me telling this complete stranger I was in love with him. It was almost too much to grasp, and when I once again looked up into his eyes, I drew him closer to gesture his loving girl was yearning for his kisses now. This lovely man did not waste any time before filling my mouth with his hungry thick tongue, and he made me feel like I was losing my virginity, there and then. I'm fairly sure I actually had a sort of feminine orgasm. After the dancing we sat down and kissed some more, and more, and more. For tonight no need for more than kisses, words of love and adoration and lustful suggestion. I was already in heaven. So when Mother returned, and found her beautiful new daughter sitting in the lap of this big mature man, wiggling her little silk-covered bottom on his undoubtedly rock-hard hidden manhood, whilst the new couple shared sweet kisses and loving touches, she purred, and smiled like the proverbial Cheshire cat at her latest victory. It was all so delightfully pretty, and dark,